You think you know what we're going to talk about.
But unfortunately, I fell down a damn rabbit hole and I've not gotten out yet.
Knife bros.
I literally Googled Sebastian Stan hands.
But just when you least expect it, we changed the game.
Well, yeah, because like usually in astrology, they would partner up air signs with fire signs.
All right, you can huggle.
Time travel stories and
At the end of the day, only one thing matters. We decide.
Well, we should make it a topic. Unfortunately, I didn't take German in school. I took Spanish and I don't remember any of it.
Three Fates Decide podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Three Fates Decide. I am one of your co-hosts, Liz, and I'm here with my two co-hosts, Sam and Mary. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so this episode we're doing something a little different. Well, not that we don't do topics that are occasionally a little different than what we have done a lot recently, but hey. We did say we like to change things up a bit. So this episode we're going to talk about astrology, which is kind of an odd topic, but you know, I joke about how it's one of my weird pandemic hobbies that I picked up. So astrology is like a very, you know, there's a lot of things you can talk about with astrology, so many ways that astrology can be used to examine, you know, all sorts of things in your life, in the world at large. But we're going to discuss basics about astrology, like the most basic thing you kind of learn when you're starting to look into this topic. So, basically, the starting point is your own personal birth chart, or otherwise known as a natal chart. It's basically the chart that is created, you know, what the heavens, if you will, appear to be like at the date and time you were born. So we're just going to go over some of the basics about, you know, what do you need to know, and to a certain degree, how do you interpret things in said birth chart. I guess, like, before we dive into this, like, what do you guys know about your own charts and your own, you know, about astrology?
I am a Gemini. I am a true Gemini, and that's about it.
I know I'm an Aquarius sun and I'm a Libra moon, and that's really about it.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything until you did my natal chart and sent it to me,
Same.
and I was reading it and scared. It's a little accurate on
A little too accurate, right, Sam?
on a lot of things. And I was just like, all right, that's a little creepy. I mean, obviously not everything, but yeah, like reading my life story that I didn't write.
It went into like a woo-woo territory.
Yeah, some things that, like, I was reading it, I was like, I never even realized, but that's so true. I really am like that.
Uh-huh.
It's like, it's, you know, you don't realize, you know, I always, again, you know, like I said, I'm a Gemini. I am a true Gemini. You know, my twin likes to pop out every once in a while. My family called me Sybil when I was little because I could change personalities in a split second. So it's real. In case you want to know, twin is real. And my mom, if you believe in, like, you know, not fortunes, but like mediums and things like that, she went to I guess she did like the tarot cards or whatever. And the woman was like, you know, I'm the baby of 4. And the woman was like, oh, do you have 5 children? And my mom's like, no. She's like, did you lose one? Did you have a miscarriage, whatever? And my mom's like, no, just the 4. And she's looking at the cards and she looks at my mom. She goes, "You have a Gemini, don't you?" Boom, 4 and 5, baby. So whenever after that, whenever I used to get upset, my dad would call me number 5, which of course then would get me laughing because it's just, yeah, it's
Right.
a little,
Hence the
Sit down.
woo-woo territory now.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty much spot on for Aquarius, but I don't know. A lot of it was very spot on, but then there were a few things I'm just like, no, no. But then others is like, okay, they've been who put the camera and who's been spying on me. That's how accurate it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I remember, like, so for the two of you, I did just to clarify to the audience listening to this, I am not a professional astrologer. I am at best a, student of it, because I was genuinely very curious and I started diving into it because it's my weird pandemic hobby. And, so, like, I did do a lot of research to create a chart based off of the info that Sam and Mary gave me. So, for me, my own natal chart, I had it done professionally. Actually, I had it done by two separate astrologers because the thing is that with astrology, especially when you talk to people who are professionally doing this sort of thing, they will have similar, ideas, but they may have slightly different philosophies and approaches to how they do astrology and how they interpret things. I mean, it's just like, scientists who happens to be, like, people who study like plants, botanists. They may have different specialities. They may have different focuses on their research, different ways they're interpreting and, studying the subject. So it was really interesting. Like, while they did agree with like many of the things between the two different astrologers that I had my chart done by, but it was kind of interesting, like what things they included and what they did, what they included and what they didn't include in the reports that I had uh received. But it's always good to get, second opinions and different perspectives. But yeah, I thought my chart was like you guys, like it was mostly right about me. I mean, it even pointed out things that it never really occurred to me until like I sat down and thought about it and realized, that is actually pretty true now that I think of it. Yeah, I had my own woo-woo moments when I was reading the report. It's like, who's been watching me now?
No, I
Um,
lied. My moon's Leo, not Libra. I'm an Aquarius Sun, Leo moon.
yeah.
I'm a Libra moon too.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not a Libra moon. I'm a Leo moon.
Oh, see, I'm the Libra moon. You're the Leo moon.
Yeah. It
You
does get
go.
a little confusing.
Stop stealing my sign.
Okay. So we'll just get cracking into this. So some of the basic things that you need to know to get started to kind of understand the basics of astrology. And once you understand these like basic some of these basic details, then you can explore and expand further um into all sorts of mysteries and try to understand things. And before we start, again, we're not saying that you have to 100% believe in this. I mean, it's perfectly fine to think this is all complete utter garbage and nonsense. But for me personally, I use this as just one way of self-reflection, self-discovery, trying to figure out, what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses. And maybe ways to like either improve myself or ways to kind of work around the negative things that are a part of me, because we're all trying to be better. So some basic facts: there are 10 planets / signs that you study up on in astrology, and there are 4 additional signs that are not really planets, but we'll get to that. There are 2 polarities with every sign. There are 3 modalities, 4 elements, 5 aspects, 12 signs in the zodiac, and 12 houses. So let's get into it. So the different planets and signs that are a part of your chart. Okay. So you have the planets, Sun, which for the purposes of astrology is considered a planet. The Moon, again, which is also considered a planet in astrology. You have Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. And then you have 4 additional miscellaneous signs, which I mentioned. You have the rising sign, the descendant, midheaven, and the IC sign. So you kind of need to know these things because, how these things are arranged in your birth chart is supposed to kind of explain aspects of your personality. So I'm going to cover the 3 most significant out of these particular signs. So there is the sun, the moon, and your rising sign. These 3 are colloquially known as the big 3, because these 3 particular signs are pretty strong and dominant parts of your personality, which is why, like, even people who are just starting out, they make sure they know what the big 3 is for them. And in fact, like, if I remember correctly, there was a thing, like, was it on TikTok or somewhere, where like people were like sharing, like, oh, what's your big 3, how do you find what your big 3 is? I can't remember if it was TikTok or somewhere else. So the sun is the most famous of the signs, because literally whenever people used to throw that line of like, oh, what's your sign? What's your sign? The sun sign is what they're asking. Just as the sun is the center of the solar system, the sun sign is the core part of your personality. It is your ego. It is the most it's like the internal sign of, it's the most internal aspect of who you truly are deep down inside.
Oh boy.
Hence, you were saying, Sam, you are a Gemini, and Mary, you're an Aquarius. So does that fit you, your signs?
Civil.
For the most part, yeah.
And for I didn't mention mine earlier, but I am a Pisces. So for those of you who happen to be interested in astrology already, you probably wouldn't be that surprised that I am a Pisces, because apparently Pisceans are really into spirituality and religion and the mysterious transcendence and whatnot. Then the next sign I mention is part of the big 3 is your moon sign. The moon represents your emotional side. How do you process things emotionally? How do you perceive things on an emotional level, especially how you react to things instinctively? And as a little side fact, the moon sign can also be a representation of your mother in certain astrological interpretations. So you guys, was your moon sign that I did for you correct when I
Yep.
did them for you?
I'm rereading mine now. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much the polar opposite, literally on the chart. On the charts, my moon sign is from my sun sign. But yeah.
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 Yeah. It does feel kind of weird when two of your big three happen to be polar opposite signs of each other. It does get a little strange.
Yeah. And let's just say that being that I'm adopted, I have no idea if it does represent my mother or not. But if we go by my if we would just not say I was adopted, it is does not represent my mother in any way, shape, or form at all.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know
My mother is
about.
also an Aquarius, but my mother is like all Aquarius. She's more Aquarius than I am.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know if this is exactly like my mom. For
I
me,
mean,
it's me.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that literally your mom is a Libra if you're a Libra moon as an example, but I think it means that like your relationship with your mom can be also reflected to a certain degree by your moon sign, like, how your relationship with her is. But again, like I was saying, it gets used in certain readings, like when people take your birth chart and they're like trying to look at certain, like answer certain questions. Just like in tarot, you ask questions and you use the cards to interpret it. You do something similar with your birth chart, is that like sometimes the questions you're answering are right there, and they use the planets and the positions and everything to figure this out. But anyway, so the final three of the big three is the ascendant rising sign. So what's really interesting about this sign is that this is a sign that is completely dependent on the time of your birth. This is the reason why astrologers, when you have them do your birth chart for you, they need to know this. They'll ask you like, "Oh, what time were you born?" Because literally your rising sign is a representation of what sign the sun is in the sky um when you at the moment you're born. Basically the concept is that like it's a 24-hour day. So roughly, not exactly, but roughly every 2 hours the sun is basically rising and falling in the sky, and it's changing signs as it does so, which is why it's particularly interesting, because the rising sign is also represents like, well, when you are born, this is how you appear in the world physically. So your rising sign is how your personality shows up to people when you first present yourself to people. Um so it's very symbolic. So okay, so you guys, what do you think about your rising signs? Like, does it actually fit,
Yes,
what it says?
it does.
My rising sign is is Libra, so
I mean,
it kind it's like half me, but the other half is like I'm full on Libra when it comes to this too. Or not Libra, but Leo. So it's just kind of really strange.
yeah, I mean, uh, since the big three are the major signs in your chart and supposedly your personality, like there are aspects of all three of those things that come out and they kind of interplay with each other differently. So it's perfectly fine to say that, like, you don't feel like your rising sign is quite you. But the other side of it also is like, how do other people perceive you to be? That's the other thing. Yeah, for me, like my rising sign, I happen to be a Virgo rising, which is really funny because that is the complete opposite of my sun sign. So I'm sure I probably confuse people quite a bit, because it's like I'm like this emotional, quote unquote psychic, woo woo, spiritual, sensitive person. And yet when people meet me, I am apparently very detailed, serious, and no nonsense. And weirdly enough, that is actually correct. I mean, at first, like, it confused me because I knew the Pisces part actually made sense, but then thinking about it, I kind of realized that when I'm at school and when I'm at work, I am I have a tendency to be pretty no nonsense. Like I don't always necessarily spend time chit-chatting instead of working. I'll just try to go over this really quickly. Um, so, right opposite of your ascendant in the chart is your descendant. Now, the descendant sign represents how do you view relationships in general, and also it's supposedly an indicator of who, like, what you're looking for in terms of a partner, romantic, or if you're marriage minded, who what your spouse is like what kind of personality traits are you looking for? And it gets kind of interesting to see whether that pans out or not. And for me personally, mine happens to be a Pisces as well. So apparently I need a very compassionate, sensitive person, which actually I kind of feel like that's true. I don't know about you guys.
I'm a Leo. I'm
Yeah,
an
do you feel like
Aquarius ascending, and a descendant is Leo.
yeah, do you feel like that's kind of what you're looking for? A guy who has those kind of traits?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the descendant doesn't mean that you are definitely going to end up with a Leo necessarily, but
I
it does
mean,
definitely indicate he has to have those traits though.
there's certain Leos that I would accept.
Of course.
There's one Leo you would accept. What are you talking about, Sam? And we all know who it is.
It always gets
Eh,
brought up. It's funny. Sorry, that was my fault.
hey, I mean, hey,
It just
there's
shows
no
we're meant to be. I'm just saying.
Right.
the stars will it.
Yes. And I'll tell you right now, this one for my descendant, that is bullshit. I already had that. I don't ever want it again.
Hey,
That's how I got my kid. I don't ever want that shit again.
Uh, Maybe if I ever
uh,
meet him, I'm gonna bring him my natal chart and be like, "Look, we're meant to be. Stop fighting it. Sign this also, please."
But no, for me, my
As I get
descendant is
escorted from the
Aries.
building.
Yeah, you're right. So my descendant is Aries. Let's just say it says my ideal partner is someone with a fiery personality who can stir up my enthusiasms and help me deal with conflict. That's how I got my daughter. No, thank you.
Oh, I
And
need to
she's
get
a
your
damned
daughter.
Aries as well. No, thank you.
well, you can't say he didn't have an impact on your life, though. Okay, so another sign we should talk about is the midheaven, which is the sign that influences your career. It's meant to be like what type of career you're looking for. And so for me, mine happens to be a Gemini. Apparently, ideally, I should be able to have a career where I communicate a lot and, whether it's like verbally or writing or whatever, basically passing out to people like important messages and issues that I want to share with people. Um, in relation to what I actually do professionally, it's not happening all that much, but hey, maybe this is a sign that I should consider changing at some point.
Maybe. It says I need a career where you can use your intuition, make emotional connections, and provide security for your family. If I could ever find a job as a nurse, that pretty much is it.
Mm. Mine is Sagittarius. You're happiest with a career that offers independence, the opportunity to broaden your mental horizons, and plenty of frequent flyer miles. 100%. I don't do that, but I would love to have. How many times have I said it in one of our chats? I want a job that I can travel the world. That's what I want more than anything. Like it's crazy. And then obviously like the independence and the broaden my mental horizons 100%. And I think that's why I've been feeling so stuck. because I have yet to
Mm,
find that job.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I kind of feel like I'm in the same boat as you, Sam, because like, like I was saying, like with mine is Gemini, and that's not what I'm actually doing as, what I'm doing now. But when I was thinking about it, I kind of realized that it does fit with my old longtime dream of being a writer, being a novelist, actually. It fits.
Yeah.
So it's not that off. It's like what I want to be, but is it really what I am right now? No. So hey, dream big. Aim for the stars, if you, as it were.
I'm trying, man.
Yeah. Okay, so the IC sign is the opposite of the midheaven. So it basically reflects on your family and home life. Yeah, so what do you guys think? Like how do you feel about yours?
So I'm Gemini, and I mean, it's not really. It's what I probably would like, but it's not obviously anything that has happened. So who knows? Maybe in the future it'll be true. But you know,
No, for
Yeah,
me, no.
yeah.
Mine's Capricorn. I do not have a traditional taste in interior decor. I'm very eclectic with my tastes. And a conversative attitude towards family and therefore shoulder an enormous amount of responsibility. I mean, I do because I'm a single mom, but at the same time, I really would rather just give it all to Buzz. Like, Mom, you deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
know
I'll
you
be
do.
honest. I mean, I'm 40 years old, but damn it, I want to be 4 again because I'm like, Mom, you deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to adult.
Yeah, I kind of feel like my IC was like not completely right. I mean, like kind of like what you were saying, Mary. I kind of feel like it's somewhat right, but not completely right either, because mine is apparently Sagittarius, and it says that like I like to move frequently, or my domestic life is shaped by strong religious principles. I mean, the moving is definitely not right. But I could sort of see the religious thing because like I was raised Catholic. Um and I
Oh,
am and I happen to be more of a agnostic slash spiritual type of person versus being particularly adherent with, established religion per se. So it's kind of like sort of not right for me. Um okay, so just to go through this quickly. So the other planets, you like I was saying earlier, you have Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So the way you have to look at it is that since those planets were all named after Roman gods, these planets have similar representation as what the job titles of those gods were, if you will. So it's pretty easy to like understand what they represent. So Mercury as the messenger god, as you would imagine, your Mercury sign is a representation of how you communicate and process information. Like what do you have the tendency to think about a lot? Venus, the love goddess, is a reflection on your romantic tendencies. How do you respond to the finer things in life, beauty, art, etc. Um, Also, some interesting little facts to mention. The Venus sign is also useful when you're doing astrology for asking the question of like, who's your ideal romantic partner. Venus is the planet of your spouse if you happen to be male. And what's interesting is that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be only heterosexual males to use Venus in that way. You could definitely be LGBTQ and use Venus as a representation of your ideal romantic partner in that interpretation. What's interesting is like for women in a similar way, you actually can use the planet Jupiter, which I will get to. So Mars is the god of war. So what motivates you into action? That's what your Mars sign represents. It's also interesting is that whichever house Mars, the planet, is located in your chart is also a representation of what theme or aspect of your life that you really want to deep dive, put your energy into exploring. Jupiter represents the manner in which you expand your horizons and how you experience the world. And like I said earlier, when you're doing romance related astrology, Jupiter represents your partner if you're a woman. And also another fact is that the house that Jupiter is located in represents what aspect of your life you will get the most bounty and benefit of. Okay. So Saturn as a planet represents certain issues or themes that you feel you are inadequate in or you have limitations in. So it's like the thing that you have your personal struggles with. That is what, you need to work on. And just right. And just as the moon represents your mom energy, Saturn apparently represents your father, which I thought was kind of interesting. So the final three planets, they are generational planets, which means that, just as they take a long time to go through their whole revolution around the sun, it takes a long time for them to move between signs. So people born within certain time periods collectively will have the same signs. So it's a reflection of what people of your astrological generation reacts to certain things. So Uranus represents individuality and rebellion. Neptune represents fantasy and idealism, and Pluto is how do you approach to life-changing events. So as the three of us happen to be relatively close in age, we do actually share some of these three signs with each other. So,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably part of the reason why we also get along. Because we get each other.
Probably.
Okay. So the next section we'll get to are the actual 12 signs of the zodiac. Many of you are probably familiar with it, with what these things are, but just to quickly go over them. They are in order: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. You are one of these 12. So you have to combine all of these planets and signs that I talked about earlier and figure out which of these 12 signs all those things fall into. And you kind of interpret like what, these things mean, like what bits of your personality are involved in all these things. So as we said earlier in the beginning of the episode, like you two, especially since I did your reports for you, you more or less thought like, ugh, spooky.
Yeah.
Well, even like now, because like like you going through those other like the planets and stuff like that, and like as you were explaining certain things, like I was looking to see like what house or whatever, and like again it just freaked me out even more because like the one the stuff that like I feel like I'm lacking in, it's like when I looked at what house that planet it like it's the stuff that I really do feel like I'm lacking, and like it's crazy. It's
Oh, you mean like the Saturn?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when people like start getting into this, like they think of, things like the big three, which are obviously very important because, they are a good chunk of who you are as a person. But what's also interesting, like I was saying before, is that it's also good to look at where do the other planets fit in, because it does bring up some interesting things about your own personality, your internal life that you may or may not realize. Yeah, I mean, for me, my Saturn happens to be in the third house, which I will get to in a bit. What is the deal with the houses? But mine happens to be in the third house, and it says here, you seem to work harder than most people at learning basic communication skills. You may feel that you didn't get as much formal education as you wanted or needed, or you may have gotten an early education which wasn't to your liking. That, I have to admit, that did get a little weird, because that is somewhat true for me, because as a kid, I didn't get that much interaction with other children on a regular basis until I went to kindergarten. So when I was in kindergarten, I barely talked to anybody. I mean, my mom told me much later that my teacher at the time actually asked her if I actually understand English, because I would just not talk to anybody. Because I just didn't know how to really interact with people that much, because my parents were both working full-time jobs, and play dates were not really a thing back then, and most of my cousins are either a lot older than me or they didn't immigrate to the US yet, so I did not have a lot of exposure to other children, like I said, until kindergarten, so I had a hard time communicating with people. Yeah. So that was a bit spooky for me too. I thought that was weird, at least. But at any rate, so since you mentioned it, Sam, the houses. So what is the deal with these houses? So in a birth chart, it's divided up into 12 houses, and each house represents certain themes or aspects of life. And incidentally, each house coincidentally also kind of syncs up with each of the 12 signs of the zodiac. So the first house corresponds with similar traits and themes as Aries, as an example. So just to quickly go over. So the first house is the ego, surface appearance, and location of the rising sign, which is what I mentioned earlier. What the significance of the rising sign is. So the second house the theme is money, material possessions, your values. The third house is short journeys, primary education, siblings, writing, communication, which, like I was saying before, the first house corresponds with Aries. This third house corresponds with Gemini, because those themes I was just reading out are things of interest to Geminis in general. Wouldn't you agree, Sam?
Yup.
Okay. So the fourth house is home, parents, psychological roots, end of life, which, like I was saying earlier about the IC sign, usually the IC sign is whatever sign is in your fourth house. The fifth house represents romance, children, creativity, leisure, games of chance. The sixth house is work, health, service, duty, self-improvement. Seventh house is partnerships in general, including marriage, which is why if you're doing astrology in terms of romance, who is my ideal partner, that sort of thing, what sign is located in the seventh house and what planets are located in the seventh house matter a lot. They matter a lot. Even if there are no planets located in the seventh house, the sign in there is pretty significant, because it gives you some clues as to what type of traits you are looking for in a partner, or also what type of traits your ideal partner has. One of those things. The eighth house is sex, death, regeneration, money, transformation. Ninth is travel, philosophy, religion, law, publishing, higher education. The 10th is career, reputation, status, public image, which when we talked about the midheaven earlier, there you go. Midheaven is the sign of the 10th house. 11th house is friends, groups, hopes, wishes. 12th is seclusion, secret, spirituality, self-sabotage, intuitions, and the clandestine. Yeah. So when you establish, okay, your birth chart, you need to know what signs are located in which house. And then if you have planets located in particular houses, what that means is that those particular themes, that these houses represent, they are important issues for you. So it's like if you have planets located in, like, say, your sixth house, which is the house of work, health, service, duty, self-improvement, it means those particular issues are important to you. So your career matters to you in the sixth house, but also the same thing in the 10th house, which is also a career, reputation, status, public image, that sort of thing. Yeah. So overall, you guys, like, when you were looking at your charts and stuff, like, I know it's a bit tricky for you, Mary, but did you kind of feel like when it said that, like, these particular planets are located in certain houses, that, like, those were issues that did actually matter to you to some degree in particular?
Yeah, I mean, as you were going through it, because like I am still learning. Even though you did this, I didn't know obviously everything. But like as you were going through, like the planets or whatever, and I'm looking back at the document that you sent us about everything, and I'm like looking to see what house is on what planet, and each time I was just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like the one I was talking about with
I will
Saturn,
say, yeah,
mine's the 10th house. All those things are like some of like the things that like, keep me up at night. So it's like that just floored me.
For Mary, let's see. Your sun is in the fourth house. You got your moon in the 10th. You have Mercury also in the fourth house. So fourth, 10th, third, 12th. You have some planets in the first, second, third.
so
Yeah.
basically, are you saying I have planets in almost every house there is? I think.
Not quite. It seems like yours is mostly focused on the first four. Yeah, most of your planets are pretty close together, actually. Most of them are in 12th, 1 to 4, and 10th,
Huh.
which is interesting. So that basically means that, like, okay, your your surface, your ego, how do you appear to people? Money and material possessions, uh, communication, education, your family, career, reputation, and the spiritual. Those are apparently things that matter to you in particular, apparently.
Family, especially, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Because, like, I did notice, like, in yours, there were a few planets that were in 4 and 1. So,
Yeah, I will say family is a big one, and not just because I'm a single mom, it's because I'm adopted. So, not really knowing who my family is. I mean, my adopted family is my family, but like birth family, not knowing that kind of it kind of weighs on you.
yeah.
Mm.
So by coincidence, it's not completely far off that,
No.
these happen to be things that matter to you most. With each of the signs, as in, Aries, Taurus, etc., there are certain descriptions of, like, what those things are like. Now, it's very it's pretty easy for you guys listening to this episode to like look it up for yourselves, because there's tons and tons of websites where they will describe and explain everything about Aries, about Cancer, about Leo, etc. But I'm just gonna bring up like a couple of interesting things to note when you're looking these things up, especially if you just want to start off with like, what is my sun sign? Like, who am I deep down inside, right? So one thing that comes up in the descriptions are like the polarities, which is yin or yang. So yang represents positive, extroverted, objective, assertive. Yin represents negative, introverted, subjective, receptive. So basically, are you introvert, extroverted? Then there are the modalities, which are cardinal, fixed, mutable. So cardinal signs are the enterprising initiators, and they want to go out and do things. Okay. And there happens to be 4 signs that are cardinal. The fixed signs are the types who want to preserve, solidify all the work that. So if somebody initiates the action, somebody wants to really make it, wants to organize it and make it a thing, actually make it a thing that happens and succeeds. Also fixed signs happen to be tenacious, focused, and determined people. Mutable signs are flexible, variable, adaptable, and adjustable. So, and by funny coincidence, so Sam and I happen to be mutable signs, and Mary is a fixed sign. So,
Why does that not surprise me?
so you feel that's accurate?
Probably, yeah. To be honest with you, yeah.
That's not always a bad thing. I mean, somebody has to like put us in our place.
Yeah, you ladies have never actually seen or heard my temper. And I'm very my daughter gets it honestly because she's an extremely stubborn little child, but she gets it honestly because I'm an extremely stubborn adult. Bullheaded is the way some people have referred to me as. I'm very bullheaded. I get that from the Leo side.
Well, Aquarius is also a fixed sign.
It is, but Aquariuses tend to be more ethereal with their,
That is true.
This is true. Leos don't.
Yeah.
That's why I said I fit the Aquarius in some things, but other things, it's that moon sign is just shining on through, and that's that Leo. That's that Leo sign in me. They got they're a little bit more, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But you ladies have never seen that side of me, and I hope to hell you never do.
I'll just turn you off.
That works. That works.
We'll talk to you when you calm down there.
I'm the type of person that like just let me have my moment, just let me let it out, and then in like 10 minutes you'll be like, the fuck? How did she just turn it off?
Yeah, that does sound like the Leo moon there.
Uh-huh.
Because right.
Yeah.
As what I'm going to get to next is the elements. And I'm going to explain why.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to explain why that Leo moon thing about your temper makes a lot of sense. Okay, so the 4 elements are, as you imagine, the classical 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water. So the fire signs, vitality, excitement, intensity. And guess what? Leo is a fire sign.
Exactly.
Does it all make sense now?
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Earth is, as you would imagine, stability, common sense, and the ability to get things done. Air signs, intellectual, and enhances sociability, sociability. And water signs are emotional and intuition. So, knowing those things, like, do things make sense to you now? Like, thinking about like the four elements and how they relate to like some of your signs in your chart. Like, does it all like add up to you?
I'm a genius. That's what it's telling me. That's how I'm taking it. So there you go. Very intellectual.
Yeah, I'm basically when I have a temper, it's like I come in like a lion, Leo, but I go out like a lamb, which might be the Libra in me for my ascendant.
Yeah.
Because there
Yeah.
are times when my Libra will kind of come through, because it says that you do anything to avoid conflict. It says you can't bear to be in a hostile environment. That is true. I absolutely hate hostility and hostile environments, but I don't necessarily will do. For the most part, I try to avoid conflict, but there are times when it just doesn't happen.
Right. Which could be again your Leo moon, because
Exactly.
because fire signs have a tendency to want to go on the attack and not just sit there
We
and
headbutt.
accept things.
Yeah,
But
I'm just like, I just want to like I just want to hit something, not like metaphorically hit something, not figuratively hit something.
right. Yeah. No, I get it. No, I get it. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like for me, my moon and my sun are both water signs. I'm a Pisces sun, Cancer moon, which
Mhm.
for some people may be like, oh God, Liz is like an overly emotional wreck who's like weepy and whatever. And also the other funny thing is that Cancer moons are also especially known to be very emotional in terms of like 1 minute I'm one thing, next minute I'm the complete opposite. Which is kind of interesting because the ruling planet, now here's the other thing, is that each of the signs will have a ruling planet, which means that you know the quote unquote energy from those planets, if you will, affect you a lot. And so if by coincidence uh one of your signs happens to be in the same sign that they are the ruler of, that just makes the energy stronger. So Cancer happens to have the moon as the ruling sign, ruling planet. So as you can imagine, having a Cancer moon means that I am like even more emotional, like more extremely emotional at times. So it's like if I get angry, I'm going to get really angry, and if I'm sad, I'm going to get really sad, etc. So I get, and one last thing before we end this. So when you've established like where your planets are located on this, chart with your 12 houses and your 12 signs and everything, the thing you also have to look at is, okay, now that you know where the planets are located, how do the energies of the planets start affecting each other? This is when you bring up the things that show up in the reports, which is the major aspects. So what is that about? Well, that basically is a discussion about the relationship between planets. So you got 5 major ones. You have conjunction, you have sextile, you have square, trine, and opposition. So conjunction means that, two planets that you're talking about happen to be just a few degrees of each other, so they're pretty close to each other. It doesn't necessarily mean they are in the same sign. So like for example, if you happen to be, you know, a Taurus sun and your moon happens to be in Taurus, then yeah, they are conjunct with each other. But it's also possible that your Taurus sun and your moon is in Aries, but the moon in Aries happens to be just a few degrees, like very close to transitioning into Taurus. That would still be considered a conjunction. So, in general, planets that are conjunct with each other means that they are able to work harmoniously, more or less, together to create strong positive energy for certain aspects of your personality or certain aspects of your life. Again, depending on what houses these things are located in. So, you know, what aspect of your life or what theme, you know, is being affected by this energy. Okay. So sextile, planets that are sextile to each other, it means you're roughly 60 degrees, you know, in your 360-degree wheel. That is considered a harmonious aspect. So things that are sextile with each other, again, creates positive energy. And then the other one that's also a positive energy relationship is the trine, which means that, again, these two planets are roughly 120 degrees of each other. So the other two I mentioned in my list of 5, the square and the opposition, are considered hard aspects. It means that these two planets, because of the way of where they're positioned in relation to each other, the energies that they're emitting may be causing you issues or problems that you need to either fix or work around. So the square basically means roughly these two planets are about 90 degrees, you know, apart from each other. And as you would imagine, opposition means they are completely opposite of each other. So like 180 degrees. Unfortunately for you two, since I am not a professional astrologer, I did not do aspects for you guys, but you know, if you wanted to deep dive more into it, there are a couple of astrologers, like I said earlier, that I had done a professional chart for. Like I could recommend those to you too if you were interested. And hey, I'm happy to put links as well in the episode description when we post this episode. If in case you guys are interested in that sort of thing as well, you know, having a professional opinion. Okay, so I guess like overall, what did you guys think? Like, you know, any final thoughts?
You know, I never, you know, obviously, like I said, I was always told like I'm a true Gemini. Like I definitely follow a lot of the standard Gemini traits and things like that. That was the only thing I ever really knew until you did this natal chart, and it is amazing to see how many things kind of, you know, come through as you're reading it and how true it is and things like that. It really was interesting, you know, and not that I'm like a huge like astronomy, you know, person, but it was very, very interesting. So I'm a believer.
Same.
Yeah,
Same.
yeah. I mean, nothing about any of this should at all make any sense because it's like, how does any of this work? Like, what, you know, what is all this? But I mean, you know, not everybody can say that any of this stuff is true for them. I mean, there are plenty of people who say like, what are you talking about? But, you know, for the three of us at least, it may not be 100% accurate, but you know, a good chunk of this stuff is pretty on the ball. It's a little weird.
Yeah.
Hey, and for you listeners, if you guys choose to explore any of this for yourselves, who knows, you may be surprised to find out, you know, all sorts of things that you never thought about yourself before. Okay, so before we close out, as usual, we have an email address where you can send us questions, comments, criticisms on how to improve our show. You can email us at threefatesdecide@gmail.com. It's the title of our podcast, all in one word, and the 3 is spelt out.
And you can also reach us on Instagram at Three Fates Decide. The 3 is spelled out. And feel free to send us DMs.
Let us know what you think. We love feedback.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Catch us next time.
And see what we're going to talk about.
Because the 3 Fates decide.